Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Rest from Off the Cuff. Today we have a really special review for you from the brand Hanhart. Now this is a brand that I've really had my eye on for quite some time because they just offer such interesting timepieces, as well as, you know, they have a really great reputation. Although they're not super mainstream, they're definitely well respected within the watch community. So I've been really itching to get one of these on the show, and I actually was able to reach out to Hanhart, and they were nice enough to be able to accommodate. So you'll be seeing this model and another very soon, and then with a newer release that I'm really excited about, which will be coming in the future once those timepieces are available. But a little bit about Hanhart. They're originally founded back in Switzerland, actually, back in 1882. And then they were relocated to Germany in 1902. They're definitely more well known for their German heritage. And basically, they're best known for their pilot's chronographs. And the fun thing about this review is this is not a pilot's chronograph. It's actually just a really cool three-hand pilot's watch that I think really stands out, you know, within their collection as something that is really special, that is also ultra versatile while not looking really like anything else that's out there on the market. This is their Pioneer One in gray, and it is of course a pilot's watch. Some key common characteristics in design language when you're looking for a pilot's watch: basically you're really just going to want a balance of legibility and functionality, and I think that's something that, you know, pilot's watches, field watches, and just generally kind of those military themed watches just do so absolutely well. And for this Hanhart Pioneer One, I think it's more of the same. This is really a great looking timepiece, and you know, it's actually not too shabby when it comes to the price. These things are actually retailing for 890 euro, so that's around, you know, the last time I checked this while filming, around $965 USD, so that's not too shabby. And then of course you can also buy them from dealers, which will probably mark them up a little bit because they're going to be holding inventory here stateside, so it's definitely understandable if you find them, you know, in the $1,000 to $1,100 range depending. Now, with all that said, let's go ahead and take a closer look. Okay. Oh man. So, such a handsome piece. You can already see just that tone of gray for me is really nice. It almost looks like something you would pay extra to get an Audi painted in, or a BMW. Really beautiful. Definitely has kind of that battleship, very German aesthetic to it, which I'm really enjoying. Now, this watch is actually 42 millimeters in diameter with a 12 millimeter thickness, which it wears really well. Look how thin that mid case looks with those high polished bevels. And it's actually 51 millimeters lug to lug, so a little bit longer on the lug, but they do curve down quite nicely. And I think for a pilot's watch, this is something that is definitely very wearable, and you know, within kind of with a scale that it should be. And I think it has really great proportions. If they ever did want to size it down or up, I think it would look really great. Now, pretty much mostly brushed here, and then you can see that we do have those nice high polished accents, as well as that highly polished big crown, which looks great. Look at the mid case on that, guys. Let me just accentuate. Look at that. That thing is butter. Super nice. I mean, it just makes you wonder why more companies don't take the time to just contour these cases, and kind of instead will mostly default to a big side slab. But when you see something like that, it just lets you know that there's just a little bit of an extra level attention to detail that you're going to get from a brand like Hanhart versus, you know, your more basic brands, even more basic mainstream brands. You know, if you were to compare this, let's say, to an Oris Big Crown with a very similar look, even with the knurling on the bezel, you know, it's there's just more complexity here, and just a higher level of attention to detail and refinement that is really going to be hard to find anywhere else. So big ups to Hanhart for kind of living up to the hype, even on very initial impressions here. Now, the crystal is a sapphire, which has a slight dome and inner AR coating, as you can see from the reflection there. But it does a really nice job, actually, of making that crystal seem quite invisible. So really nice from that standpoint. No distortion really to report. Look at that. Still quite readable even at extremely harsh angles there. The crystal almost just disappears, which is really great, and kind of what you look for when you're looking at a tool watch. Now the bezel is a friction fit bezel, and it's bidirectional, so you can go either way. It's actually not super easy to turn, so it's not loose, and it does, it almost felt like there was a little bit of a catch for when it comes to the 12. I can feel it if I close my eyes, but I don't know, maybe it's just in my head, but it does line up. Of course, you can make it line up quite easily, but it's basically for timing something. So let's say you're here, right? It's your minutes, and you need something to remember to do it in 15 minutes. Bam. Or half an hour, right? Or 45 minutes. So however you want to use it for timing, you could do that. You could also use it for the hour hand, essentially. But, I think it's kind of a fun little novelty, and it's not going to accidentally move. As you can see, I'm apply a little pressure, even kind of grip and scratch it there. It's not going anywhere by accident, so that's definitely nice. And it does add just a little bit of kind of tool aesthetic to it that actually adds a little bit of function to go on with the aesthetic, so I can appreciate that. Now, as far as the movement inside, it is a Sellita SW200 with this gorgeous custom rotor, and look at this case back, guys. Really cool. You can see the little propeller motif there. Nice high polished accents with the brushing and the etching there with all the information. The movement itself, yeah, it's an ETA 2824, kind of clone sister movement, being in Sellita, but not too much to write home about. But again, this is something similar to where you'd find, like, let's say in an Oris, with a Sellita powered timepiece, and then I think you have a much nicer custom rotor versus just kind of the red painted on Oris rotor. So this rotor definitely is quite nice in comparison to kind of someone where you're basic, customized, kind of out of the box movements within regards to the Swiss. Now, a little bit about the actual details here. As you can see, you got that beautiful dark gray dial. You have the date window at 3 o'clock. You have printed indices. Of course, this is a Lume watch, although it doesn't have to be super, putting on light shows or anything, because it is a pilot's watch. It's not a diver, but it does have a nice application of Lume on there. And this is water resistant to 100 meters, which is great. So definitely splash proof. And not that I would want to, go diving with it, because it's not a screw down crown. But it's something, it can get rained on, it can get rinsed, and you pretty much will stay out of trouble as long as you're not submerging it, for any extended periods of time. Don't wear it in a hot tub or anything like that. But it's really quite nice, and gives you a little bit more reassurance at 100 meters versus something like, sometimes you get 50 or 30 meters of water resistance. So it's nice from that standpoint. The lugs are 22 millimeters in width, and then it has this really nice tapering leather strap. They come in two sizes. This is the medium. It also does come in a large, and I honestly could have used the large size, because this one is going to barely fit my 7¼ inch wrist, as you'll see when we get to the wrist shots. But it's quite a nice strap. It's really soft. It has a decent taper to it, down to 20 millimeters from 22. So, but I think that kind of goes with the aesthetic here, being more of a bold kind of tool watch aesthetic versus something that's trying to be super highly refined. Any type of like luxury annotations definitely aren't there. It does have this nicely signed buckle, as you can see. Everything is really nicely finished. But let's go ahead and get this piece on wrist. Okay, as you can see on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, this thing wears really nicely, and I think that wider lug width does help kind of balance the weight of the watch visually. Of course, on the wrist, it's actually not hefty at all. It actually feels super nice, and I think a lot of that has to do with the amount of contouring that's gone into this case. So it really, although it has tons of visual weight and presence to it, it's not going to give you too much weight to manage on the wrist, if that's something that concerns you, especially with this really nice, very light, kind of padded leather strap. Let's go ahead and see a couple of the other angles here. Look at the way the light plays on this. Look at how flat that looks. Really beautiful. You can see those nice lugs have a nice little curvature to them that really wrap around the wrist and help guide the strap nicely. I think this would also look quite nice on a NATO as well. Unfortunately, I don't have really many 22 millimeter width straps. The majority of the straps I have are 20 millimeter. Otherwise, I probably would have thrown this on something else just to kind of show you guys a couple of different looks. But this would look really great, really, on any even more traditional pilots style straps with like rivets, or over here or something like that. I think it'll look really good. I think even playing with some browns would look really nice. But I do enjoy this very kind of German modern mixture of this aesthetic is just really cool. Again, it kind of just reminds me a lot of kind of like a really sporty Audi when it comes to that color palette and the color scheme. Just everything just feels so premium. And then of course, the German connection definitely does help as well. So really nice. You can see it lays really great. And it's just, this thing is butter on the wrist, guys, which is pretty crazy to say, for a pilot's watch, especially one that I would consider a full-size pilot's watch. I think, when you get into kind of the 40 millimeter and 39 millimeter pilot's watches that are out there, even the 38 millimeters, those are definitely trying to be, they're still aviation and pilot oriented, but they're more of an everyday timepiece. This one is more true to form of a pilot's watch and kind of what that means and what that's supposed to look like. And man, am I really loving this color scheme. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. So with all that said, let's go ahead and set up some low light and Lume shots for you and move into some closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, the BGW9 is pumping really nicely. Wow. Nice cool blue hue on that. Super sharp as far as how readable the application is on those numerals. Really great. Obviously, wonderful orientation because the numerals are actually spelled out versus being some type of indice marker in place there. You can even notice, because of the level of lume, that you can actually even see the seconds hand sweep a little bit. Although it's not lumed, you can see it as it crosses the plane of those numerals. Now, one thing I also like to do as part of my Lume shots is actually work on a little bit of a low light transition to kind of show you guys how this thing is going to render color wise, and not so optimal lighting when you're coming in and out of the building, transitioning through your vehicle and whatnot, or just generally in a place that isn't going to be indicative of, being out in the middle of a field on a bright summer's day. So you can see that gray dial and the warmth that it kind of has is really cool. I think the hue that it hits is really nice. It's actually almost toned very similar to my backdrop that I use for the reviews here. And you can see that the Lume there really helps with legibility, kind of in that transitional lighting. Still quite readable, especially with the painted handset there. Really nice. And then, of course, you can also watch the light kind of as it dances over some of those finishings. And I think the lower light transitions actually do help kind of expose some more of the imperfections and whatnot that you'll find on watch finishes. But here you're going to see that everything looks quite uniform, and really generally quite nicely executed there. So with all that said, let's go ahead and move into some closing thoughts. So What do I think of this piece? You know, on the wrist, it definitely has those classic pilot's watch proportions. And before somebody jumps in and says, hey, pilot's watches used to be 55 millimeters across and whatnot, and, you know, strapped to the outside of a bomber jacket, yes, I understand that. But I think realistically, right, I think that 42 millimeters is that kind of sweet spot for the modern pilot's watch. And I think this does a great job at that scale. I would love it even more so if it was in the 39 range. I think it definitely has the details that you shrink this thing down and it could be super, even more wearable than it already is. But I'm not disliking it by any means at the current scale. So really, really handsome. Now, as far as model variants go, you're going to have black dial, of course, option, blue dial, and a white dial. And this is the gray. I think they all actually look quite outstanding, with probably, you know, the black feeling more, classic. And then maybe the white a little bit more versatile, and then the blue, of course, you know, me and blue. I love blue dials, but this gray is really something special. I think it almost feels like a limited edition of sorts, and I think the color palette with the red accents, it really just makes it feel a little bit more modern, I think, than some of the other dial options. Besides maybe the blue feels quite modern, but definitely check the links below. Check them out for yourself. Let me know what you guys think. What's your kind of pick as far as the dial setups? As far as comparable models go, you know, similar range to something like an Oris Big Crown Pilot. I think you're gonna find, as far as kind of name recognition and kind of street cred, Oris and Hanhart aren't too far off from each other, with Oris being a lot more mainstream, but Hanhart being more of the enthusiast brand there. But, you know, at the end of the day, the bottom line is this is a really handsome pilot's watch that has actual heritage. You'll find tons of watches kind of in that pilot's watch aesthetic that don't have too much of a history with aviation or anything like that, but Hanhart is not one of them. They actually do have a great lineage, and which is definitely one that's worthy of celebration, especially in a timepiece like this. And yeah, there's something about it that really just has some crossover appeal to me in this color motif. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.